Morning. We're here at Devils Dyke. Let me take you through what I do when I come to a new site. Let's assume that you and I have never flown here before, and I'll analyze the site, look at it, identify the risks to get your head ready for flying. So first of all, you look at the launch area, have a look and tell me if you can see any hazards. Okay, I think you're getting the idea. There's really fantastic launch area here. We're very lucky to have so much space. You can pretty much lay out anywhere, so there's nothing hazardous on the launch slope itself, except for maybe another paraglider pilot. Nope, he's not looking like any danger. Okay, but what have we got here? Alright, you got some obstacles up here. It's usually where the spectators sit and watch us. And you've got another obstacle sitting over here. Now when you've got one thing sitting in the launch site like this, I can guarantee somebody is going to wrap themselves around it, because you try and run away from the obstacle, so your glider tips over and it pulls you into the obstacle. So set up well away from there. Alright, this is the typical place where everybody sets up their gliders. You can see it's the lazy man's approach of a short walk from the car. Straight out there. That's fine in light wind. But what do you think about this as a hazard? If you're looking here, we're sitting right at the top of the hill here. So this is the point where you're going to have the wind accelerating. From this white line back, you're going to have a venturi. The wind's going to accelerate through here. And you've got all of your cars, and you've got the pub. And you've got a forest. Let's go check that out. Right, so I've come through the back of the forest here. We're behind the site. And this is always a good idea, is just to take a little walk behind your launch area and go and have a look and see where you'd end up if you got blown over the back. So my launch site's back up there, the other side of those trees. You can see if you get pushed back and lifted a little bit, you're going to come over these trees, you're going to come into this area, and then you've got quite a deep pit going down. It goes right down into the Devils Dyke there, before another little sharp kicker ridge. So this is a pretty nasty area to get blown over, in that I expect that line there to create a lot of rotor. That's pretty much the ideal shape for creating rotor, where you've got a fall, a low pressure, and the wind will come down and curl around. So if you fly over here, your wing at some point is going to get hammered from the top. So this is a significant hazard. Although it looks all nice and pleasant and grassy, the ground is just as hard anywhere. So you want to avoid this. That little piece of grass up there, we'll go and visit that. Right, so that was the grass you were looking at there. This is behind. Now instead of going into that pit behind the pub, if you opted to come over here, you can see you got a really nice run downwind. So I'd be wanting to move myself over this side if I was going to get blown over the back. That's good to know. Having come here now, I know a really good escape route. So you can see again the way the wind would accelerate over this little crest, the bump here. If you imagine the air on top is going straight, and this air here is getting kind of squeezed over this top. So from around about that point, you're going to find the wind accelerating and pushing you back, and you really don't want to get pushed back over this, because you've got no real options except getting into the turbulence in the rotor behind that. Let's walk along the top here and see if we can see any other hazards. Hi! So what I'm trying to do is just come around the area and just scout it out while I'm not under pressure of flying. Just see what's here, any hidden dangers, and also look at the site from different angles. Yeah. Hectic. You don't want to land there. Okay, that's the ants have taken over that corner. Not really a hazard, is it? But have a look at the site from here. We'll hop up into the wall so we can get a better idea of what's going on. This kind of thing, obviously you don't want to land on the upwind side of it and get blown into it. But that's a pretty obvious hazard. You're going to avoid it. I can see somebody flying down to the landing field. The landing's down in front there, and looks like the landing's within easy glide. We'll talk about it in a moment. Can you see what's happening to the slope over there? It's changing angle. Over there the ridge is running like that, then it comes around in this bowl and it goes this way. Now assuming we're soaring on this slope, this is the takeoff sights over this way, the wind would be coming in from about there. Can you see the problem? Where's your hazard? If you take that wind line over there, and you see that little clump of trees, the wind is then going to be spilling into that bowl. It's going to tend to want to come around and into that bowl. And you might get a little rotor there, which will then get pushed back. It's got nowhere to go, so it's going to get pushed into this corner. So you can expect this air in this corner here to be fairly churned up. And the other thing that's going to happen is the wind's running along, it's being diverted. Even if it's coming from there, it's going to be diverted along the slope. But the wind from here is going to be diverted that way. And you're going to get a compression in the corner, where the wind is all squeezed into this narrow little channel here on the side. So that little piece there, I'm going to expect that's my danger for the site. That's where the wind's going to accelerate the most. It's going to be the most turbulent, and I'm going to get pushed back. Is it a problem? Well, let's prep for that. Look at that nice big open grassy field. Not a big issue. That's what makes Devils Dyke one of the safer sites to fly, even in strong wind. You definitely don't want to go over the back at the far side over there by the pub. You don't want to get blown back that part. But if you set up and you fly across this way and you go for that little channel there, you've got quite a lot of safety. You can get blown back, you can land backwards on a grassy field like that. It's quite safe. So this is below launch. We've come down below launch. You can see the slope gets nicely steeper, so you should be launching well off the top. And you can see there's a hazard here, there's a barbed wire fence. So you kind of mentally prepare, decide where your cutoff point is, where you've got a hazard in front of launch. I would say if you're not flying by this little crest here, when you've got 20 meters from the fence line, you want to pull the brakes, stop the glider, set up again because something's gone wrong. So you give yourself a line where you say, okay, beyond that point, that's my abort. If I hit that and I'm not flying, kill switch. That can make a big difference when you're under pressure. Lots of people watching you, YouTube cameras. You already know that's my line. Then you can stop safely. Okay, this kind of angle change in a slope is very helpful for a safe launch site. You can see the angle change easier over there. But it does mean that if there's any kind of wind and you're running off the slope, you should be airborne long before you get to any hazards. Cool, so that's just a quick overview. I would definitely recommend going down to the landing field, going and having a look there and assessing your landing risks. Right, so we're down here at the landing field now. don't think you could ask for better. You've got a flat field at the bottom here, nice run to land on at the end, and you've got a sloping field leading down. So it's good to come down here. I can see from this that I want to come out to near the road so that I'm not getting lift off the field. If you just glide down the field, it'll probably just keep lifting and lifting and lifting all the way down. But coming down to the road and then setting up along the road, you've got a very easy landing area. Okay, your only hazard, usually when you've got a road, you're going to have some kind of telephone line. I don't see anything here, but I think there's something hiding in the tree line on the other side of the road there. And you've obviously got some buildings and houses and things. So if my wind is coming from that direction, if it's still the same as soaring on launch, I would expect to be getting rotor where I'm standing right now. Bear in mind this is a wide angle camera, so it's making things look a bit further away than they are. I estimate that's I don't know, 50 meters away, and in a soarable wind you're going to be getting messy air from there. So you want to set yourself up so that you've got the air coming in from a nice angle where there aren't any obstacles. I always come down and have a look at the landing field on a new site just to make sure that there aren't any hidden hazards, nothing lying on the ground, no wires that you can't see from up high, and that just gives you a peace of mind that you know you can set up easily, don't have to worry about it, and you can focus on your flying and not worry about the landing. The only hazard that I could foresee on a landing like this is if your wind direction changes. You've got a little streamer there, make sure you know where the streamer is, or set up a windsock, because you could be soaring up there, fly out, sea breeze could come through, and you could be setting up in a completely different wind direction, which if it's in the last few meters can really surprise you and then send you into some of these obstacles that you weren't expecting. So get some sort of wind indicator down on the landing before you go up and fly. It's a good idea. So everything that I'm seeing here is telling me this site is really safe. As long as you're flying in conditions that aren't too strong, you can play here, no worries. It's well worth driving, particularly if you, in the first couple of years that you're flying, it's worth putting in the miles just to get to an environment like this, so that you build your skills quickly instead of being kind of on the limit, flying in hairy conditions or, you know, really tricky launch sites. Just build up a foundation flying in a place like this. Also going to the dunes, you know, Dune de Pilar, Portuguese coast, anywhere where you've got nice dunes and you can just mess around. Any nice big grassy fields, grassy training slopes. That's really what I'd recommend in your first couple of years of flying, just so that you really build a strong foundation. And then when you go to the like really scary, tricky postage stamp, rocky, scree slope, cliff launches, you've built all of those skills already. You're not trying to still learn stuff in that environment. But I hope you've learned something about how I kind of analyze a site and decide in my mind whether it's safe or not. So just to summarize again there, first thing you're looking at is your launch area. You're looking for hazards around the launch area, and you want to try and position yourself as far away from the hazards as possible without compromising your launch. You want to go over the back, look at your escape route, analyze how safe it is and are there any better places to track towards to get away if you get blown over. Check out the slope dynamics, the angles of the slope and where the wind is going to create turbulence, and check out your landing field. Make sure you've checked out the hazards before you fly for the first time from the top. The quality of the escape route affects my decision on what kind of conditions I'm going to fly in. If I'm flying at Devils Dyke, I know I can handle quite a lot of wind, particularly if it's off to the one angle that's going to push me into that safe channel. Also, if the wind is off to the west, I can see there's going to be an area where you're going to get turbulence, you're going to expect it, so when you fly in there, you're kind of ready for it, or you're giving yourself more clearance off the slope. So already just by looking at the shape of the land, you can work out a flight plan that'll keep you in the safest air and give you a good day's flying. Hey, I hope that helped you. prepare for your next paragliding flight, how to analyze the site and keep yourself safe. If you like what we do and you'd like to get behind the channel, pop over to Patreon/Flybubble. We'd really appreciate you joining there and supporting the channel. That'd be great. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.